Hey, as we're waiting for people to come just in the chat, you can find that chat in your name and where you're dialing in from. We've got an international statewide crowd here, so let's see where everyone's coming in from. Awesome. We've got New Zealand, Melbourne, Byron Bay. Hi, Eliza. Melbourne. Byron Bay, Ben's next door.
Using the room next door.
WA. Awesome. Another one from Auckland. Houston, Texas. You win, Kelly. Melbourne.
It's baby. Yeah.
Oh, BB.
Hi, baby.
Right. Cool. Oh, Boston. Amazing. All right. So I think we'll get kicked off in just a moment. Claire is going to give us a welcome for country, and then I will formally welcome you to our book launch for Claire. So
thank you, Annika. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we live and work. So I live and work on the land of the Bundjalung Nation of the Well people and pay respects to elders past, present and future. And hello everyone, Jinguwala, which means welcome.
Right, yes, welcome to Claire Gray's inaugural book launch for her first book, Thriving Leaders. I've got a copy in my hot little hand, which hopefully you guys can have one as well. Today is all about celebrating Claire and sharing some of the journey of writing the book, publishing the book, and some of her travels.
It's coming.
Claire, for those of you who don't know her as well, she is a phenomenal force. She has a company called Thriving Leaders. So she develops leaders, teams, and organizations to just flourish and be their best. So this is her first book, but I'm sure there's many more to come, Claire.
Maybe, we'll see. Ben lets me, no.
Is a force. But just by way of seeing how you all know Claire, we're going to launch a Zoom poll just in a moment. And can you just let us know, multiple choice, how you are connected to Claire?
I know.
And if you could, just mute yourself for now so we can keep
it
to a minimum. Judy, I'm looking at you.
I've done it for them.
Awesome.
My auntie and uncle. Hi, Jude. And there's my mum. Hi.
All right. So, Josephine, we'll go ahead and launch that poll. That should pop up in just a minute. Okay, there it is. So if you could take a minute, answer how you are connected to Claire. Okay, numbers are just coming in. A few more seconds.
There's 80% of people have completed it. Just if you want to click one of the poll choices.
All right. Couple more coming in.
93%, so close.
Come on, how do you know, Claire?
Shall I end it?
All right, let's end the poll. So the results are in. The way most of you are connected to Claire, it looks like most of you know Claire quite personally and are invited to, we're invited and decided to find out a bit more. So awesome to have your support. Some of you have helped in the process of editing, reviewing, providing feedback in the book. We're going to talk through that in just a minute. And then some of you have just been following Claire's journey on LinkedIn. Been following on LinkedIn, looking to learn, and some people don't know anything and are curious to learn. So hopefully you walk away knowing way more about this lovely lady and what she does. So we'll stop sharing that now. What I want to do now is maybe, Claire, if you want to say a couple of words before we jump into some of the nitty-gritty of the book writing.
Thanks, Annika. There's so many friendly faces here, family, people I've grown up with and went to school with, people I've worked with, people I've worked for, seeing people I've done courses with, clients, lots of different stakeholders, in different ways. I know people, so I feel really chuffed and a little bit emotional and overwhelmed actually seeing everyone here supporting me. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Oh, we lost you, Annika. You're on mute.
Oh, classic. I said, so Claire, I want to just pop you in the hot seat for a moment. And
Yeah.
for those of you listening in, we haven't rehearsed any of this. I don't think Claire's had a minute to sit and actually think through responses, which I think is perfect. We want off the cuff and candid. So want to just find out a little bit about how you wrote the book. Before we get into that, though, I do want to mention that there are chances for you guys listening in to win a book today. There are 3 chances. And so at the end of the session, whether you win or not, it would be amazing to support Claire and purchase the book. We'll share all the links later on about how to do that. But let's dive into the book and what it's about. So Claire, just tell us a little bit about why you wrote the book.
Yeah, sure. So I wrote the book, I guess I've been facilitating lots of Thriving Leaders programs. So that's my To the Public program and lots of different programs into organisations. And I just heard time and time again that people wanted to refresh on the content that we covered in the course, but also the fact that leadership's an ongoing journey, and it's not that you just flick a switch and one day you're a leader and one day that you have all the skills you need. You're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. It doesn't matter how senior you get, you're still learning. And so I wanted to kind of collect all my thoughts on what I feel are the fundamental skills to be a really confident leader and put it in a book. And so I guess that was sort of the catalyst to sit down and write the book. I never was a person that was like, hey, I'm going to write a book one day. It wasn't really on my radar. I think in high school, English was probably my worst subject out of all my subjects because I did lots of maths and science. But look, me now, I've written a book. I'm actually an author. So showed those English teachers. No, I'm joking.
And so who is the book specifically for, Claire?
Yeah. So the book is for leaders who have been in their role for a while. So, you know, it still applies for first-time leaders or really experienced leaders. But I guess what I find is lots of people who come on my programs have been in their roles for a period of time, and they're kind of put in this position to sink or swim. And they learn from people who have led them in the past, but they also learn what not to do when they make mistakes as well. And even, you know, through my research, I found that on average, people move into their first leadership role between the age of 30 and 35, but they don't actually get trained in leadership skills until about 40 to 45. So that's 10 years that they're just doing their thing, kind of learning on their feet. And so I really wanted to target those leaders. It doesn't mean that it doesn't still apply for really experienced leaders or first-time leaders either, but I just really wanted to target those leaders that are kind of left to their, you know, to sort it out themselves.
Yeah, amazing. And who was involved in creating the book? Because you had editors, you had designers, you had thought leaders, like who was involved?
Yeah, lots of people. So it definitely, although my name's on the cover, there's lots of people who've helped kind of get to this point. Ben, my husband, who also works in my business as well, he read the whole manuscript of my book, each chapter as I went. He was sort of my first cut and was very, very useful, especially when I wrote the first chapter, which was actually the 4th chapter I wrote, but I'll explain that maybe later. He actually got me to completely restructure it. Like I had to rethink that chapter. And I think I even reached out to you, Annika, from memory to help with that too, to kind of bounce some ideas off you. There was a number of people like my mentor, John Eddy, my brother James, and also Zoe Noble, who I kind of shot different chapters to, just when I had a bit of imposter syndrome or I was getting a bit of self-doubt, just to get some feedback on the content. So that was really helpful. I also had Joanna Yardley, who's from the Editing House, who was an absolute superstar of editing. Normally, when you do a manuscript, you have to finish the whole book. but I requested if I could send parts of my book to her. So actually, when I started writing the book, I wrote my introduction, and then I wrote the feedback chapter, which is chapter 3, because I was facilitating a feedback session. And then I wrote chapter 4, which was on coaching, because I was over with a mining client in WA doing a week-long coaching session. And then I did chapter 2 and chapter 1, which in hindsight probably wasn't the most logical thing to do, because I had to wait until I had all 4 chapters and the introduction finished. But, you know, you live and you learn. I also had one of my best friends, Lara Evans, who designed the front cover of the book. And also she actually designed the logo as well, which that was a couple of years ago, and my logo for my company as well. So Lara was absolutely amazing to work with, and I absolutely love my book cover. So really pleased with that. Josephine, who's on the call, she's part of my team. So she has created all the models for my program. So all the models and pictures that are in it, Josephine's design. So she's done a great job with that. And then there's the whole publishing process with Sylvie from BookPod. It needs to get proofread. So Anita Saunders proofread the book 3 times. And then I also decided to, at the last minute, read an audio book. And so Elaine Decane at Alleyway Studios helped with that process as well, which was awesome.
Yeah, I love that story you told me about recording the audiobook. Like Claire woke up on a Monday morning, she's like, oh, I should record this.
Yeah.
Made it happen. So maybe we can share a bit about that later. Claire, you had a question for the group to throw it to them to sort of provoke their thinking. So do you want to take them through that?
So I'm just keen to get you to type into the chat, like think about a time where either yourself or someone else has been a thriving leader. So they've been really confident and you've, been led by someone, or you yourself feel like you're confident and led them. What were the things or characteristics that they demonstrated? What are some of the things that you think make up a thriving leader? So you just type a couple of words into the chat.
Just type a couple of words into it. Do you?
Yeah, I would.
So the chat button's just at the bottom of the screen for those. Empathy, Janelle, yeah. Empathetic, confidence, humility, trust and belief in common purpose, high energy and passion, curious. Yeah, I talk a lot about asking questions in the book. Great listener, empathetic, supportive, humility, open to feedback, compassion, clarity, visionary, passionate, empathetic, clear and caring. Yeah. So there's lots of different characteristics that make up a thriving leader. And there's some fundamental skills within what you've talked about. And compassion has obviously come through quite strongly, as well as listening, which are definitely characteristics I talk about. And I guess that was one of the challenges writing the book, was really being focused on what the most important things or important skills a leader needs to have to be thriving. Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of a commercial break.
Love it.
Been paying attention and listening to Claire's responses, although she didn't give it away, but I'm going to throw the question to you for a chance to win one of her books. Can you chat in the amount of months it took Claire to write the book from start to finish? So we have gauged start to finish as the minute she had the idea to write the book, and I think
I announced it, to the world.
Announced it to the world, to the ethers, and it was set in motion to the time when the book landed in a hot little hand. How many months did it take her to complete that book? All right, Beck and Moran, you're straight off the bat. I'm going to give you guys a hint. It's not a whole number.
We're being very technical here. It's a point something.
Yeah.
7.5.
Okay, so close out.
So close, but not quite.
Rebecca, I think you might be our first
Rebecca
one.
Harris, I think you've nailed it. 5.5 months.
Rebecca, you win a book.
Woo!
Okay, so Rebecca, congratulations. If you could DM Josephine, who's on this call, your mailing address, we'll get that shipped out to you as soon as possible. Congratulations. And to the rest of you, well, try harder next time, but there are 2 more chances to win a free book. Okay, so let's carry on. We want to get into, Claire mentioned Joanna Yardley, who was her editor from the editing house. Jo couldn't actually be on the call today, but Claire had asked her to respond to a couple questions about the book writing process. And she sent in her answers. And if it's okay, I think we'll read some of them out because she did a really lovely job of showcasing what the process was like and what stood out for her in the book. For Claire. So if you're okay, you can sit back and I'll just read verbatim some of the stuff she said because I think it really highlights the uniqueness of Claire's book. So the thing that stood out for Jo, she said, is that how personal the stories are, more than just stories. They have a purpose beyond here is an example of, and essentially they could all be short stories in that they portray a problem and a solution. Claire uses these personal stories as run-on examples to showcase her key messages. Each story is mentioned throughout a chapter and section as a running example, not just a one-off. This is a particular skill. It not only highlights Claire's belief in the worth of others, but it also demonstrates Claire's dedication to real-life scenarios by way of communicating her ideas and teachings, where real people have struggled, where real people have survived, where real people have learnt, and where real people want to help others be their best. So another thing she went on to say is that she supports a lot of authors and edits lots of books. One of the things she learnt from reading and editing Claire's book, she said, first, I think the title of Claire's book is important. In particular, the word confidently. So the book is Thriving Leaders, Learn the Skills to Lead Confidently. She said, what I took from this is that not all leaders are confident in their abilities to lead. Obvious, I know. It sounds simple, but what a relief it must be for readers of this book to know that someone hears them without having to say anything. As leaders, can we admit that we aren't confident to lead our people? I'm going to say no. However, after editing Claire's book, I understand that not having all the answers, not knowing the right questions to ask, and not knowing one type of feedback from the other were normal traits of normal people who found themselves in leadership situations for which they weren't prepared. So I think we'll leave it there, and we'll share a link to her LinkedIn so you can follow up on that process. But I think those are lovely comments about how personal the book is and how it's not just another how-to book. So now I've lost my spot. Where are we? Now I want to interview you, Claire.
Oh, excellent.
You're on a hot seat. So some more about the process of actually writing the book. So there's the words, but there's also designing the book cover. So can you tell us a little bit about that process? You mentioned before your friend designed the logo and did that, but what was that process like?
Yeah, so Lara Evans designed the book cover. So I've been friends with her since the first day of Year 7. So we've been very close all this time. And I told her that, I guess the brief I gave her was that I really wanted to make it demonstrate the growth that you go through as a leader and how it's kind of evolves and it's evolutionary. And so I gave her this brief, and then the other thing I said to her was that I just really wanted the spine of the book, because I'd gone looking at bookshops and looking at what I liked and didn't like, but I wanted, just in case I do write a second or third book, the book of the spine to, I guess, link together and tell a story as well. And so she ended up sending 3 lots of 12 different designs to me to choose from as a starting point. And it was almost like, I was like, I like this one, I like this one. And then finally, when on the 3rd round, she sent through a version of this, pretty much very similar to this. And then we worked through the fonts and the colors, and I added a little bit more foliage and took a little bit off here just to finesse it. But it was just a really amazing process going through it with a friend as well, because she was very patient with me, because I would be like, to ask her to change something, and then I'd see it and I'd be like, oh, actually, hang on, I think I liked it better before. And so she was really good at, I guess, going deeper rather than, and kind of, I guess, putting the vision that I had, not that I knew what it was going to look like, to into something that I really, really, really love. So I really do recommend Lara. We're going to put her link. I think, Jo, you've just done that now. Thank you, in the chat. She's just rebranded her brand to Made You Look, but her contact details are there if you need any sort of graphic design support. She is amazing to work with as well. Oh, you're on mute again.
You'd think 2 years into I don't know what to do. So before you mentioned that it took 5.5 months to write a book, which is just incredible and insane. Surely that process wasn't just smooth line. Like, can you take us through what that was? Like the highs, the lows, like take us on the journey of what that looked like. How did you get going? What structures did you put in place? What was the emotional journey? How was Ben in the journey? Like,
Ben will probably have a very different version than I will, because I feel like now looking back, I said this to someone the other day, I feel like looking back now, it's kind of like, you know, childbirth or having a child. You kind of forget all the hard times that you actually went through. And I was like, oh yeah, that was really easy. But now in reality, it was actually really hard. Like, it was hard work also because I was working as well. So obviously I carved some time out in my weeks each week to write. Sometimes that happened, sometimes that didn't. I also wrote on the weekends, not every weekend, but, you know, every sort of second weekend probably for one day, which for me, that was probably a bit of a shock to our family because I don't normally work on weekends ever. Like, it's you know, I have quite strong boundaries with that. So I had a bit of FOMO because I was missing out when Ben was going to the beach with the kids and stuff. So it was probably harder on me than it was on them. But yeah, so, but in terms of, you know, I can't say that I did anything super cool, like rented out an Airbnb and went out into the hinterlands and was writing on my typewriter. It wasn't so glamorous. I was just here at my desk because I actually found when I went away, I wasn't in my groove. But when I started writing, and the first chapter I wrote, which is my feedback chapter, was probably the one that got edited the most because it was definitely the worst written. I just had COVID and decided to start writing a book, so my brain wasn't super clear. But I kind of wanted to get all my thoughts down, but I got into a better groove. And by the last chapter, which was the communication chapter that I wrote, even Joe's feedback was, wow, like your writing has, you know, changed and improved. So it was good to get that feedback from her as I went in the process. And I also researched as I went as well. So yes, I do most things quite quickly. I speak quickly, I walk quickly, I write a book quickly. So that's just who I am.
It's paid off. Of that process, is there anything that you would have done differently if you'd had your time again?
Yes, definitely. Lots of things. I would have given myself more time. So I guess this arbitrary deadline that I had was all self-created. And when I said, I'm going to write a book, I didn't realize at the end of me actually writing all the other stuff that had to happen. And so there's, you know, sort of 3 months at the back end that you have to, I guess, allow for. So I got told you can't launch a book in December because it's too close to Christmas, although it's obviously a great Christmas gift for anyone that needs to find a Christmas present. But so I wanted to launch it in November. My work anniversary is the 17th of November. So I've been in business for 4 years next Thursday. And so that was my goal, have the book ready to launch by the 17th of November. And then when I had to work backwards from that, it meant I had to write the book by the 3rd of August. And I was like, whoa, that doesn't give me very much time. So yeah, so then I just got writing, I guess. So that was one thing. I'd give myself longer. What else would I do differently? I actually would record the audiobook before I press print. So what's quite interesting, even though I read the book after it was finished probably 3 times before we pressed print and the proofreader read it and everyone had read it, the spoken word and the written word are quite different. And so when there was probably 2 sentences at different points that I had to say them so many times and I was like, oh, that's just not how you would say that. But maybe when it's written grammatically, that's correct. So I think next time I would do my audiobook, and then once I'm happy with everything, then I'd press print. That's probably something else I would do differently. They're probably the main 2 things that come to mind.
Those are hot tips. Okay, well, let's take a breath and give these guys another chance to win a book. This time we have remember Wheel of Fortune? We basically have Wheel of Fortune about to happen. All of your names are on the wheel. We're going to spin the wheel a few times, and then if it lands on you, you are the lucky winner. So, Josephine, if you want to launch that. Okay, here we are. We'll give it a little spin.
And then just come up with spinning music.
Oh,
Adam!
Adam Berry, you win a book.
Congratulations. And Adam's already bought a copy of my book, but I'll still send you one, Adam, and you can gift it to somebody else if you'd like.
Awesome. So Adam, just like before, if you can DM your mailing address to Josephine, we'll get that sent on its way. So let's just carry on with a few more questions, Claire. And then, of course, at the end, we've got question time for you guys if you want to ask Claire some burning questions about the book or the process. But tell us a little bit about what you're most proud of in the book.
Most proud of. There's probably not like one specific thing that I'm most proud of. I think probably what I'm most proud of is that I wrote a book. Like, I never thought I'd write a book. So that's kind of cool to say that I'm an author and I've written a book. And I'm also proud of sharing, like, there was 4 different leaders that I interviewed for the book. So in the first chapter was Tony Davies, who's the CEO of Social Futures, and Social Futures are based in Lismore, and so they experienced the floods earlier in the year. And so he kind of shared his story about how he led through that. So that was quite an interesting story. And then my good friend, Sandy Morrow, who used to be the CEO at Koala Mattresses, I interviewed her about high-performing teams, and they were such an innovative, disruptive organisation. So that was really, really cool to hear her story. And she's also in the accountability chapter when we talk about OKRs. I also interviewed Jimmy Stewart, who was on the call before. He had to drop off from JVAT on the accountability chapter. And Jimmy's got such great leadership experience because he was in the military, but then now runs a management consulting business that's really, really successful called JVAT. And my brother James is his business partner. And I've worked really closely with them over the years to see them grow. So it was really great to share what they've done in terms of accountability. And then the final person I interviewed was Will Brook from Brook Farm, that make sort of premium muesli and granola, and hearing how they connect their teams to purpose, which you'd think would be quite challenging for an organisation that makes, breakfast cereals essentially, but they do such great work to connect their teams to the purpose of the organisation as well. So it was kind of cool sharing those stories and hearing their experiences. So I'm kind of proud about that, but also kind of sharing. It was really nice. Like, there's different times in the book where I was thinking about different stories of good leadership that I've experienced. And then I would kind of reach out to that leader that I hadn't spoken to, some for like 5-8 years, and just reconnecting with some of them was quite nice to get permission to use their stories in my book too. Yeah,
lovely. Switching gears to the audiobook, back to that process, because maybe some people have questions about that. And when you were telling me about how you did it, I think you did it in like the shortest span of time ever, like in true Claire format. She's like, let's just consolidate. You're saying it's going to take, I don't know how many sessions it takes. She just consolidated it down to like 2 days, 2 sessions in the studio. So take us through that process and how you just like banged that one out.
Yeah, so I spoke to somebody on a Friday who had written a book, and she said, my only regret when I wrote my book was waiting a year to do my audiobook. I wish if I had my time again, I would definitely have released my audiobook at the same time I released my book. And I was thinking, shit, like, I'm releasing my book in 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever it was. How am I going to do this? So then on the Monday, I got on the phone and, Googling away different studios, and my neighbour is a voiceover artist, so I was picking her brain. And then my previous neighbour before that works in the music industry, so he gave me some contact details, and I found Alan from Alleyway Studios, who had never produced an audiobook before. He produces music and podcasts and also ads for radio. And so he's got all the skills, he's got the technology there, he's got the studio. And I also don't think he realised what a mammoth task it is to edit an audiobook, but I'll come back to that. So I'd been told only record for half a day for 4 hours because your voice will get tired and you'll kind of lose the love for what you're saying. You won't be narrating, you'll just be reading. And so I booked 46,000 words. So I worked it out. I booked 4 to 5 half days, and then went into the studio. And in the first day we actually got through, I got in a bit of a groove, although I woke up that morning with a real tickle in my throat, and I had was lemon and ginger tea, and my voice was croaky anyway. So I was a little bit nervous about that. Anyway, we got out of 240-page book, but we weren't reading the references. So 220-page book. We got through the first 97 pages. And so overnight I was thinking, well, I've got another 4 days booked in, half days booked in the studio. I probably don't need that. So I messaged him in the morning and said, how about we just go for an extra 2 hours and let's just smash it out? He's like, great, let's do it. And so we did it in 2 half days, well, 4 hours and 6 hours. And so, so then I had a week and a half left, a day and a half in my diary free the following week, which was quite nice to have. And but then Alan, who was editing it, is used to only having about 2 hours maximum of content. He had 9.5 hours of recording. And so now he's got to edit that down. And so he's probably doing that as we speak right now. So I'm looking forward to hearing it. Because I definitely never thought I'd have an audiobook. So that's exciting.
When can we expect the audio version, Claire?
I think it'll probably be in the next week or two. There's a lot of learning. Like I've also got to work out / get Ben to work out how you actually upload an audiobook and all those sorts of fun things. We even, because it's now released on Amazon and Book Depository, and we only worked out the other day after it'd been up for a week, how to check who's actually bought the book. And it's like, 7 copies in France, 4 in Poland, like all these just random countries are buying my book. So this, it's a steep learning curve. Yeah.
And what about these other books? So you designed the do we call this the stem of the book?
Spine.
The spine of the book to be part of perhaps a trilogy. What are the other books you're thinking you might write down the track?
So I do want to write Thriving Teams, which is essentially chapter 2, but what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to do some research, like enlist an organisation that does research to research leaders and high-performing teams based on the model that's in the Thriving Teams chapter. So that would be the next book. And then maybe if Ben will still be married to me, then it would be Thriving Culture, which will be more at an organisation level. But Thriving Teams is definitely something that I think I will do in sort of 2 to 5 years' time. But maybe there'll be a third book, maybe there won't. I'm not too sure at this point. At this point, I'm just going to lap up that I've done one for now.
Amazing. So I think what we'll do is pop in some links to actually buy the book. So if you haven't got a copy, now's your chance to go get a copy for a friend, get a copy for your teams. And really support Claire and share it on her socials. So Josephine's just popped the link in chat. I'll just cover off a couple ways you can get access to the book. So for people in Australia, the most affordable way to buy the book is through Claire's website. So we've popped in that link, which is herthrivingculture.com.au. You can go right now and buy the book from Amazon and the Book Depository. So for internationals, this means that it's printed and shipped in your own country, so it's more environmentally friendly. Oh, Mark Butler, you've done it already. Nice job. You get a free book. There is also the ebook, which is available through Amazon, Kobo, Audible. That will, as Claire said, be released in a few weeks. And we'd love to share what you think of the book and any insights on socials, whether on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. So we'll share those links to socials as well. And so, Audible in a couple of weeks. I just want to open it to you guys. So you've heard a bit about Claire's process and her journey of writing it. And I'm sure some of you have been involved in it, whether you're just a shoulder to cry on or you've contributed to the book in some way. So do you have questions for Claire that you'd like to ask? You can chat those in or come off mic and ask before we get into the final round of book winning. All right. Well, I think while you think of any questions, we'll go to our final chance to win the book. Oh, hang on. Beck has a question for you, Claire. What was your favourite chapter? That's a great question.
Oh, it's like choosing between my children. No, sorry, no, it's not quite. Good question. I haven't actually thought about that. I think my favorite, I don't know. I think maybe my favorite chapter is Thriving Teams, because it links to a lot of the work, not only I do in developing leaders, but I do when I work with leadership teams. So I think it's kind of got two purposes to it, not only just in terms of how you develop as a leader, but also how you work effectively as a team. And also my good friend Sandy features in it as well. So it was kind of fun to interview her and work with her, which was quite nice. It's funny because the one chapter I said to Jo, my editor, I was like, I feel like I'm losing steam on the last chapter. Like I was like, I just got to keep going kind of thing. And then when she actually got it, she was like, this is the best written chapter you've written. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Well, that's nice to know, because I felt like it was, I was just running out of steam, I think.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to our spinner wheel. So another chance to spin the wheel and see if your name pops up.
Yeah, I need to pull out music. Best person ever has just entered the waiting room. I wonder who that is.
Well done, Rebecca. You've won the third and final book. As always, just DM your address and details to Josephine, and you will have that in the mail very shortly. Who was the greatest person that?
I don't know. Let's see. Where are you? Show your face, the best person in the world. Oh, they don't have their video on. You have to turn your video on, best person ever.
It's a bit sneaky, isn't it? All right. Well, I think we will leave it there, short and sweet, unless there's anything else you want to add, Claire, before we send people off and with the links to buy their books.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for dialing in. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces and friends and old colleagues and people through my life that have meant a lot to me. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to support me today. So thank you so much.
Okay. That's the muted claps. Rousing round of applause. Well done, Claire. It's phenomenal what you've done. So all the best. And thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.